Hello, God bless you today, and thank you so much for joining me. The title of our video today is Jesus' Compassion Toward Women. Now, as a woman in ministry, I am so refreshed by the compassion that Jesus extended to women. They came to him for a refuge, and he was just that for them. Psalm 62:8 says, "Trust in him at all times. Pour out your heart before God. He is a refuge for us." So God, in the form of Jesus Christ, extended himself to women. And he is still doing that to this day, to women, obviously, and to all of mankind. What is really beautiful in 4 examples I'm going to give you from the Word is that Jesus defied law and custom in order to look after women. Now, my first example is obviously the woman at the well. We all know that story. Now, in John 4, verses 3 through 4, it says Jesus left Judea and departed to Galilee, but he needed to go through Samaria. Now, what is pertinent here is that it was not geographically necessary for him to go through Samaria. He had a divine appointment with a woman. There is a cultural taboo. At the well, Jesus spoke to a woman in public. That was a cultural no-no. And not only that, she was a Samaritan woman, and the Jews had animosity between them and the Samaritans. And not only that, Jesus had an extended conversation with this woman. A large portion of John 4 is this conversation. Now, in the Gospel of John, this woman at the well was the first person to whom Jesus revealed himself as the Messiah. They were speaking of worshiping the Messiah, and Jesus specifically said to her, "I who speak to you am he." He was very clear and concise that he was the Messiah. And what happened? This woman realized that she had encountered Jesus the Christ, and she ran with her call, which was she was called to be an evangelist. And she went into that town and said, "Come see a man who's told me everything that I have ever done." The religious leaders in that day could never understand who Jesus was, but she did. And Jesus chose this woman to bring a city in Samaria to him. In verse 39, it says, "And many of the Samaritans of that city believed in him because of the word of the woman who testified." Our second example is Mary Magdalene. There was a cultural taboo here. Men were to be taught and then to share information with women. In this instance, Jesus instructed her to go and inform men, his apostles, that he had risen. In Mark 16, verses 9 through 11, it says, "Now when he rose early on the first day of the week," and this is Jesus, "he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he'd cast 7 demons. And then she went as she was instructed and told the apostles." Jesus presented himself first to Mary Magdalene and then instructed her to go and tell the men. Our next example is the woman caught in adultery. This is such a beautiful account in the Bible. What was the law? If you were caught in adultery, you were to be stoned. In John 8, verses 10 through 11, Jesus said, after she'd run to him, he'd written something in the sand, and her accusers had left. He said, "Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you?" And she said, "No one, Lord." And he said, "Neither do I condemn you. Now go and sin no more." Oh, the compassion of Jesus Christ. There was a crippled woman in a synagogue. My next example from Luke 13, verses 10 through 13. Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And there was a woman who had a spirit of infirmity 18 years and was bent over and could no way raise herself up. Now, when Jesus saw her, he's teaching, and the men would have been in the front, the women in the back. When he saw her in the back, bent over like that, he called her to him. to proceed forward in the front, he called her to him and said to her, "Woman, you're loosed from your infirmity." He laid his hands on her. She was made straight and glorified God. Now, what did the ruler of the synagogue have to say about that? He came with the law. No one should be doing work on the Sabbath. Look at what the ruler was focusing on. What did Jesus say in Luke 13, verses 15 and 16? He defended the woman and what he had done for this woman against the ruler of the synagogue. He said, "Does not each one of you on the Sabbath loose his ox or his donkey from the stall and lead it away to water? So ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan has bound for 18 years, ought she not be loosed from this bond on the Sabbath?" My. He stood against the ruler of a synagogue on behalf of a woman. And I'd just like to share with you now, to conclude, sheer compassion. Jesus took care of his mother as he was dying on the cross. As a matter of fact, that was his last act when you look at John 19, verse 26. When Jesus saw, therefore, his mother and the disciple whom he loved standing by, he said to his mother, "Woman, behold your son," and to the disciple, "Behold your mother." And in that next verse it says, all things were now accomplished. Jesus fulfilled all that he came to this earth to do, and his last act was to see that a woman was cared for. Mm, mm. I want to thank you for listening. This is Just Iris. Please think on these things.